Okay, hi teachers. This is the instruction guide for primary 3, term 4, week 1. Okay, so for this week, there are 3 booklets. In fact, I should say perhaps 3.5, and I'll explain in a bit. So the main focus is on reading and interpreting bar graphs, which I think is fairly easy, right, for most students. If there's enough time after the 3 books are completed, you can move on to, remember there's one, last week there's one heuristics booklet that you have not done yet. Yeah, you can move on to that one to go through with students, okay? Okay, so let's start with the key topic. So for this one, they are to learn how to read and interpret bar graphs. Okay, so you might want to do, we start off with a recap of a picture graph that they have done in the past, and then how can they do it into a bar graph instead. So for this question, you got to show them what these represent, right? So this is the bar graph. Now the next page is quite good to explain. You can say that, first of all, it has a title, just like a picture graph. And then you have the 2 labels, right? One label on the vertical axis that says number of books, which would suggest the numbers, which would then suggest the number of books for each of those so-called variables. Okay, let's not use variables, but in this case, those students or children know that the number of books that each of them have, right? So this part would represent the number of books. And then you might want to show them how to read this, right? It starts with 0, always with 0 in that sense, right? Now here it is in multiples of 2 that is indicated, but actually, right, you can actually do this with them, and you can actually get them to write it out as well. So it's not just multiples, but each of these knots is actually represents 1. So this is actually 1, and then 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, sorry, 7, right? And then 8, 9, okay, and then it's 9, and then 10, 11. All right, so you can encourage them to write it out if they like. And one of the ways of reading this bar model, okay, so sorry, before we move on to that, then we look at the horizontal axis, right? This shows the, in this case, it tells us the data for each child. And how do we read this? I would encourage that you get them to use a ruler, all right? And one of the first things that they will see is kind of bar graph, right, is try to identify what's the data for each of the respective person here. So if they use a ruler, what they can do is to immediately identify. Okay, let's pretend that this is a ruler. Okay, so they use a ruler and then draw it this way, and they'll know that, okay, Roger points to 6, and ask them to write the numbers on top immediately, right? So get them to do the rulers. I'm just drawing the lines first, for example. Okay, once they've done it, okay, to make it easy for them, okay, they can go ahead and write the numbers on top first. Okay, so this is 6, this is 10, this is 8, and then this is 4, right? And then after that, it will be easier for them to answer the questions later. So make this a habit for them. Okay, okay, so, and then show them another way of doing it. Sometimes the numbers are represented on the horizontal axis instead, right? The data is presented on the horizontal axis, and then the people or thing is provided on the y-axis instead. Okay. Oh, sorry, I should have said vertical axis. So let's get them to do the first question, right? So here, always read the question first. It says the bar graph below shows the number of cups of tea sold at Tea Paradise over 5 days. Use the information in the bar graph to fill in the blanks on page 5. Okay, so tell them that they have to answer the question based on page 5, based on this bar graph here. So first thing that they do, right, use their rulers, okay, to write down the numbers. Okay, so measure, right, align it, and then you'll know that this is 80, right? So the first thing that they do is to write down all the numbers first. So we'll just do a few right here, 80, all right, and then this would be, perhaps for this one is a bit different. This is the multiples of 10, but each knot, right, you might want to get them to write down first so that you know it represents 5. So 15, right, 25, 35, okay? But if they're already able to see that these are multiple of 5, then they don't need to write the whole number set out. Okay, so let's continue. So this is the first one is I started with last one. I should have started with the first one. So this is 45, write it out. And then this is 75, right? This is 60, this is 55, and then that's 80. Okay, after that, they'll be easy. It'll be very easy for them to answer the questions, right? There shouldn't be any problem. So get them do one question here. Guided practice, right? Go through them. After that, you might want to, the first few questions are quite easy. So perhaps I would suggest that you move to question 3, right? To do this. See, so now they got to decide, right? First thing to do, what do this so-called scale means, right? So 10, 20, 30, right? So they have to figure this out first, all the way to 90 here. Okay, then first thing they do, ask if they remember what to do next. Write down the numbers first. Okay, 150, and then 180. Okay, and then after that, you can get them to do on your own. Make sure for this question, it's a bit more challenging than the first one that you did. Okay, so there is some comparison question in which they have to decide, right? Number of girls who took part in the run was how many more than the numbers of boys. So they have to do some subtraction here, right? Sometimes you may have to do addition, like in this case, number of adults who took part in the run, right? Who are the adults? Okay, the men and the women, right? So they have to understand that. Okay, and I think, right, thereafter the questions are quite, yeah, more or less the same, right? So I wouldn't want to spend too much time on this, but except maybe try just doing one last question, question 7, because they have to explain, right? So same process. Okay, get them to figure out what each of these notch means first. In this case, this is it says 100, 200, so these will be all in multiples of 50, right? 50, so get them to write out 50, 150, right? After that, they can write the respective numbers here. Okay, so it's actually quite easy. They should be able to solve this. In which month did Miss Nora save $650? They just, because they've already written the number, all right, so it's quite easy for them to see, August. So perhaps D and E would be something that you may need to go through with them, because some of them, they may not understand the question. Here it says, Miss Nora received a bonus in a salary in one of the months. Which month do you think it was? Right? So suddenly there was a lot of money, right, that he received or she received, right? So they can explain that. Okay. Then we move on to the second booklet. All right. For the second booklet, nothing different, right? In fact, it's the same thing that we would do, right? Again, use a ruler, right? Get them to read the graphs. After that, use a ruler, write down the numbers. Okay, so it's actually quite easy, right? Get them to do the guided practice. This one is a vertical. The axis is a bit is swapped around, so you can do one question like that, right? Guided practice. But make sure that they write the numbers. So same thing, right? So they have to figure out what's a multiple first. From 0 to 50, each of these should represent 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? So this one would be 150, 160, 170, 180. Get them to write the numbers here, right? 110, 100, 110, 120. Okay, so that's an important process, right? Get the right numbers, and they will be able to answer the question. Okay, after that, might want to get them to do, perhaps question 3, right? Not a lot, right? I think that's fine. Okay, question 3, then perhaps see, I would say question 6, right? More complex, and I think they're done. Okay, now the third book, okay, basically just independent practice, very repetitive. Okay, but I would say also complex, a bit more complex. But let's make it. Let's try them. Let's try to get them to do all for this. So the first 2 booklets, right? I would suggest that for homework, maybe just assign 1 or 2 questions from each book, and then they can do everything, right? For booklet 3. Okay, but do take go through some questions with them. So I think question 4 will be good to do. The group of children 8 aged 8 to 12 years old took part in the children's holiday camp. The children were grouped according to age. Bar graph shows this. But why? Because some of the questions here, right, would need them to would not be so straightforward, right? So, for example, how many children were 10 years old or younger? So they need to consider 10 years old or younger would include 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And then another question: 16 of the children who were 10 years old were girls. How many 10-year-olds were boys? So need to find the total for 10-year-old boys and minus. So some of these questions require more than 2 steps. Okay, then there's a question that requires multiplication as well. All right, so take note of that so that you might get them to do question 5, right? And then, or maybe just get them to do question 3 instead of 5. Okay, so and then the rest can be assigned as homework. Okay, and if you have whatever remaining time, right, you can start going through the booklet from last week, right, where we did the lamppost thing, right? If you remember the one on heuristics, okay, and that's the end of our lesson, right? If you're not able to get to the 4th book, that is fine. Okay, all right. Happy teaching. That's it.